Hey, it's Connor. Welcome to iFanboy Mini. iFanboy Mini is the small-sized version of iFanboy, the comic book show. And last week, in a couple of the minis, Josh and I showed you some goofy DC villains. And we found those villains in my big DC binder, and I thought today I would show you, what is that DC binder? Well, here it is right here. And it's heavy. It's this big gray binder, and it's full of these pages, and what these pages contain are DC Who's Who. And what Who's Who was originally was a comic book that showed you each character and their profile and their biography and their history and their powers and their name and all the pertinent information. It's basically a big dossier book where you'd say, oh, here's Batman, here's his history, here's Superman, here's his history, and that's what you'd get. And Marvel had the same thing with the Marvel Handbook. And then in 1990, DC and also Marvel actually came out with binder-sized loose leaf versions of the same thing, so you'd get them and you'd be able to put them into your binder, and you've got files basically on all the characters like this. And it's first of all strange that they came out the same year, but in 1990 I was 13 and I discovered these about 3 or 4, we'll call them issues in. There was 16 of them. And I was excited, and I would buy them up and run home and you'd be ripping the paper off to see what was inside, because the difference between the Marvel and DC was interesting. The Marvel was actually very boring. You'd have almost a police lineup shot of the character, the front shot, the side shot, and the back shot. And it was really boring, and then in the back you'd have the information. And with the DC, what they did, they made big pin-up shots of their characters by the artists currently working on their own books. So you'd have exciting, shots of action or whatever, something that captured the character. And that was fun because A, it was more exciting than just this, and then B, you would want to know who was drawing which character because you never did know. And these DC ones were shrink wrapped because they were just loose pages. So you wouldn't actually know who drew what and how the page would look until you got it back to your house and took the plastic off and you got to look through it. And so it was exciting. It's kind of like if you were into baseball cards, you were in the new set would come out, you didn't know what your favorite player's card was going to look like. This is kind of the same thing. You wouldn't know, and it was part of the fun. This Who's Who, what they did was they divided it up into sections, and in the back each one was color-coded, so you'd have things like geography where they would profile the planets like New Earth from the Legion or Krypton. And then you'd have heroes, which was self-explanatory, and you'd have hero teams, and supporting characters like Lois Lane or Alfred Pennyworth, and supernatural, which was all the Vertigo characters, because in 1990 they were still part of the same world, so you'd have all the Sandman characters and Zatanna and people like Dr. Fate and things like that. And then you had villains and villain teams, and you had technology section, which would show off big fold-out covers with pictures of the Batcave or the Batmobile or the Justice League headquarters. And you had just great art in here. And what's interesting is, looking at it now, is almost all these bios, maybe 80% of them are written by Mark Waid, who was at the time working DC editorially for the most part. And he's the guru of DC history. And if you look on these, text by Mark Waid is almost the most common thing you see in this whole book. But also, you had a lot of top-notch artists working on these. It's a fantastic Joker by Brian Bolland, which just jumps off the page at you. A great Batman from Norm Brayfogle. Kevin Maguire did a bunch of them. He did the Teen Titans and a bunch of other people. Adam Hughes did the Justice League, and he did Martian Manhunter. And it was half the fun was just seeing what the artists would come up with, and then just reading the bios and learning about these characters. It's a great way to learn about people you never would have read about. I learned about a lot of people that I hadn't been reading at the time through these Who's Who's books, and they were fun and exciting. And I feel like it's time to bring the Who's Who back. And I would love it if it was in binder form, because I really enjoyed this, and I would love to make a new binder with some new Who's Who stuff. They actually updated, the 16 issues ran from 1990 to 92, and then in 93 they had 2 updates, which was actually full of a lot of people that weren't that exciting. I mean, characters like Doomsday and Bloodwind. Bloodwind had no bio, because he'd only been out for a few months, so his bio was very short. But I'd love to see some more of these. If you have any Who's Who memory, you can email me at contact@ifanboy.com, and you can check out more videos from iFanboy at revision3.com/ifanboy. Thanks for watching.